Tszyu was originally scheduled to face the former world champion Keith Thurman on March 30th last year, defending his WBO light middleweight title. But just 12 days out, Thurman pulled out due to injury, leaving Tszyu to face a completely different opponent, the 6'6" southpaw Sebastian Fundora, a fighter with a totally different style, stance, and set of dimensions. But coming off a loss to Brian Mendoza, Fundora looked vulnerable, and Tszyu no doubt felt he could repeat that outcome. What followed though was a nightmare for Tim. In the second round he suffered that deep cut in the top of his head, blood constantly pouring down his face for the majority of the fight, very much blinding him at times as he tried to wipe the blood out of his eyes. Any other fighter he may have been able to get through more easily. But across the ring stood the relentless towering inferno Fundora, who was desperate for redemption, ready to seize his shot for gold. Fundora walked away with the split decision victory, but not without the controversy. And rather than running it back immediately, Tim took the fight with IBF champion Murtazaliev. Many expecting him to bounce back and become champion once again, but Tim would find out he was still in the nightmare as he was dropped 4 times and stopped in brutal fashion.
Pressuring, but he's not jabbing.
Oh, he got dropped with that left hook!
It's the same!
Since then, both fighters have gone on to win their respective fights, but there's still questions on whether the cut was the main factor in Fundora winning the fight, and that's why there is an intriguing aspect to this rematch. It's Tim's chance to show that you can come back from adversity, while Fundora will want to prove the first fight was no fluke, as he will no doubt want to take out Tim once and for all. In this tactical overview, I'm going to consider the factors for each fighter and how they could win in the rematch. So on that note, let's get right into it. Let's start off with the defending champion Sebastian Fundora, and he of course is an anomaly at this weight, a 6'6" southpaw with an 80-inch reach, fighting at 154 pounds. He almost looks so out of place for boxing, yet he's highly effective. In the first fight, his height and reach were always going to be his biggest weapons, but he was always criticised for looking to fight in the pocket for too long. And in this fight, he was actually working overtime with the jab, which was great to see for once, and maybe he had learned the lessons after that knockout defeat to Mendoza. However, when that big lanky frame is coming at you and he's flowing, you can simply overwhelm with the volume and the wide looping motion of his punches that his opposition just don't see the punches coming. However, in this fight in particular, after the cut happened on Tszyu, I think he did a great job landing it consistently, doubling and tripling it up to keep Tszyu on the outside.
Again, Fundora looking to make the most of this opportunity. Tszyu brought in American 6'3".
The uppercut, but again, if he follows up after that, that'd be great.
While he also used his jab to keep the distance at that mid-long range, keeping Tim at the end of his punch. While Tim did try to attack, he could just reset by using his lead hand to frame off Tim as he tried to close the distance.
The jab. The bloody face was 3-0 with 2 knockouts against southpaws. Last one he faced though was 15.
I also liked if Tim did launch an attack to close the distance, even if Fundora would get hit clean, he would immediately try to fire back with his jab or southpaw left hand, often catching Tim as he tried to exit out the exchange. And if Tszyu hasn't worked on a better exit strategy in this fight, when he comes out the pocket, he could see himself getting caught out even worse this time.
Fundora's been landing left hands off these jabs as well. That would be acceptable from Tszyu. Round just for doing that. But you know, look, every time Tszyu is scoring in this round, Fundora's coming back and getting it back and winning the round because of that.
And that was another great adjustment Fundora made mid-fight, as he was trying to prove he was the busier puncher. Early on he was more reactive to Tim, but as the rounds went on he got more comfortable. He controlled the tempo with that jab, especially off that lead right hand, where he would look to touch and shoot against him, while no doubt the blood pouring into Tim's eyes no doubt helped him as well. But if he wants to win again, it's all about staying tall, staying busy, and keeping the jab active. The minute he gets lazy or trades or probes for too long on the inside, that's where Tim becomes dangerous by throwing the overhand right. However, Fundora will no doubt feel confident going into this, especially the way Tim looked very vulnerable against Murtazaliev, especially with those wider hooks and uppercuts when Tim would open in the exchanges. While Fundora in his last fight versus Brooker proved he could be very aggressive behind the jab, it will be interesting to see if Sebastian tries to actually push Tim back in this fight more aggressively for setting up his wider rear hooks or uppercuts, either around the high guard or up the middle, as he's shown he excels at throwing these when on the inside, especially for a man of that size. One thing is for sure though, he can make this a very difficult night for anyone. I always try to give fighters the benefit of the doubt, and Tim going into this fight had to make a quick pivot from prepping from a slick orthodox boxer with movement to facing a 6'6" pressure fighting lanky southpaw, not to mention dealing with a horrible cut at the beginning of the fight, and I still think he almost pulled it off. He started the fight strong, cutting the distance well and standing his ground against a much bigger fighter, and I think he needs to continue that if I'm being honest. Defensively, I think he did well in those early rounds. I liked how he used the lead hand parries and forearm blocks to stop Fundora's jab getting through. While at the same time used his right hand to block the right hand or used waist movement.
More demanding, there it is. And again, always trying to build that.
He landed a bigger hook.
And I think initially from round 1 he did a very good job targeting the body of Fundora, setting up his right hand downstairs before he started landing the clean right hands upstairs, even breaking Fundora's nose with it.
Punches in the sport. Oh! And that right hand popping Fundora's head back like a pest dispenser. Left hand from Fundora found in
He doesn't have a real snap jab. He's got a measuring jab. That's what he's doing. Backward dance. You see where their front feet are.
Another snap to the right, another right hand lands.
But everything clearly changed after round 2 when that elbow from Fundora opened the brutal cut in the top of his head. From there, I think there was panic and urgency from Tim to get the job done, as his team couldn't get the blood to stop. Tszyu, though, to be fair, stayed in the fight, and he didn't back down, and he kept walking forward and absorbing shots while trying to dish out punishment himself, as he was still landing those overhand rights, nasty lead left hooks, over the top or around Fundora's lead hand. But with his vision impaired and the blood constantly running into his eyes, his accuracy dipped and he maybe started to headhunt that little bit too much, unlike at the start of the fight when he was going to the body. Personally, I think he still needs to do what was planned in the first fight, by closing the distance with smart pressure, by continually looking to close the range, by looking to touch Fundora's lead hand and use feints before mixing up the levels with his right hand to the body and head. Well, this was also a sneaky way to get him on the outside foot position before throwing the right hand. While if Fundora did try to pivot out to his left, he was also ready to fire as he tried to escape the exchange. So with all that being said, he still needs to play it smart. Fundora is still very dangerous with those wide hooks and uppercuts. And as seen in the past, Tim can get a little bit open in the exchanges, especially when he throws that left hook, and even Fundora almost caught him out with it at times. And now with some wear and tear, I'm sure Fundora will be looking to try set up that punch. I think as well he needs to be ready for a more aggressive Fundora coming out as well, as he certainly had that approach in his last fight versus Brooker, and for me, I don't think he wants to be drawn into an all-out battle on the inside with him, as getting caught early is not the way to go. However, this could very well work out in Tim's favour. However, Fundora does open himself up to danger with those wide uppercuts in the pocket, as Tszyu is very capable of setting that inside slip left hook on the inside, similar to the way Mendoza knocked Fundora out. And maybe more crucially, it's easier said than done, is not to get cut again, and that elbow from Fundora, whether intentional or not, changed the fight. And his corner will need to be ready to manage that type of emergency better if it does open up again. Well, he needs to be mentally prepared if something like that does happen again. This rematch, of course, is about adjustments, redemption, and proving who really deserves to sit at the top of this division. Fundora will no doubt want to show that his awkward style, busy jab, and toughness weren't just enough to beat him once, but it will work out again, even with a fully prepared version of Tim in front of him. Tszyu, he's now had a full camp. No last minute switch ups, but only hard lessons from those past defeats. As there is a path for victory for him, but it's narrow. He's going to be in with a version of Fundora which is more confident. He'll need to take away that confidence by closing the distance smartly and punishing that body early to try drop the guard of Fundora while looking for ways to make him open up with those wide hooks to counter. But it could very well be about him avoiding damage early in the fight, so it doesn't derail him again. For me, if Fundora can keep Tszyu at bay and dictate the terms of his jab with range control once again, he could very well edge out another decision. If Tim can break that southpaw jab and set up a big right hand against Fundora consistently, he might be able to take him out, and it could be his moment of redemption. Whatever happens, this is going to be a tough fight for both of them, or if one isn't mentally prepared, it could be lights out. This has been Jamie from Boxing Life. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this fight. Do you think Fundora will prove the first fight was no fluke, or can Tim get past the mental barriers of what happened in the first fight by getting a convincing victory? I'd love to know. You can watch the fight by using the link in the description below for Amazon Prime. This has been Jamie from Boxing Life. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like or subscribe for future content like this. As always, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the fight when it comes, and I'll see you in the next one.